Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Somalia's capital city of Mogadishu, two massive truck bombs exploded in quick succession Saturday night, killing at least 300 people, wounding 300 more. It was the deadliest attack in Somalia since the rise of the al-Shabaab militant group a decade ago, one of the worst bombings by a non-state actor in recent years. In the worst of the two bombings, a truck packed with hundreds of pounds of explosives detonated near the Safari Hotel, collapsing the building, igniting a nearby fuel tanker. The resulting fireball set cars on fire, flattened nearby businesses and homes, trapping people under rubble. On Sunday, hundreds of Somalis poured into the streets of Mogadishu to condemn the attacks. This is Rama Abdi Ali, one of the protesters.
It was a massacre that happened yesterday, and I never saw such a thing in the last 27 years. I witnessed a little boy's head laying on the ground and his mother and other children with their heads also cut in the explosion. People buried people's body parts separately because they collect them separately. It was a very shocking event.
Somalia's president declared 3 days of national mourning after the attacks. There's been no claim of responsibility, but Somalia's government was quick to blame al-Shabaab militants who've been behind past bombings in Mogadishu. The explosions came after the Trump administration stepped up a U.S. campaign against al-Shabaab in Somalia. In March, President Trump declared Somalia a so-called zone of active hostilities, giving wide latitude to military leaders to launch airstrikes and ground assaults. In May, that led to the first U.S. combat death in Somalia since 1993, when Navy SEAL officer Kyle Milliken was killed in an assault on an al-Shabaab radio station. In August, a raid by U.S. soldiers and Somali troops on a village outside Mogadishu left 10 civilians dead, including 3 children. President Trump said Friday he would refuse to certify Iran's compliance with an international nuclear deal, calling on Congress to toughen the U.S. stance toward Iran. Trump reportedly wanted to withdraw the U.S. completely from the seven-nation agreement, but was talked out of it by Defense Secretary James Mattis and other members of his cabinet. This is U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley speaking on Meet the Press Sunday.
Well, I think right now you're going to see us stay in the deal, because what we hope is that we can improve the situation, and that's the goal. So I think right now we're in the deal to see how we can make it better, and that's the goal. It's not that we're getting out of the deal. We're just trying to make the situation better so that the American people feel safer.
Trump's move to undermine the Iran nuclear deal drew fire from U.S. allies who said it increased the threat of war and made it far more likely Iran could develop nuclear weapons. In Tehran, President Hassan Rouhani condemned President Trump's decision.
Manners and attitude have great importance. President Trump's speech was full of falsehoods, unfair insults, lies, and fake accusations against the great Iranian nation. Iran is not a nation that will yield to forceful talking and hateful speeches from a dictator. The Iranian nation will not surrender to any nation.
In Washington, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said Sunday he approved of President Trump's foreign policy moves, shrugging off comments by Republican Senator Bob Corker that Trump had, quote, castrated his Secretary of State. Speaking with CNN's Jake Tapper, Tillerson said he was fully intact. Tillerson also repeatedly refused to confirm the NBC report that he called Trump a moron during a meeting with top military officials last July.
Is it true? Did you call him a moron?
Jake, as I indicated earlier when I was asked about that, I'm not going to deal with that kind of petty stuff. I mean, this is a town that seems to relish gossip, rumor, innuendo, and they feed on it. They feed on one another in a very destructive way. I don't work that way. I don't deal that way.
In California, the death toll from unprecedented wildfires has risen to at least 40, with hundreds more missing, as firefighters continue to battle 15 major blazes across the state. The fires have destroyed thousands of homes and businesses and are now the deadliest in California since record-keeping began. At least 100,000 people have been forced to evacuate, with about 75,000 people still displaced. Later in the broadcast, we'll go to California for the latest on the wildfires. In Ireland, the remnants of Hurricane Ophelia made landfall Monday as a post-tropical cyclone, bringing gusts of more than 100 miles per hour and knocking out power to tens of thousands of people. Ophelia made history by becoming a Category 3 hurricane farther east than any other storm in recorded history, fueled by much warmer than usual ocean surface temperatures. A 2013 study in Geophysical Research Letters predicts human-fueled climate change will fuel more hurricanes than can survive long enough to make landfall in Europe. President Trump's named former Texas environmental regulator and climate change denier Kathleen Hartnett White as a senior advisor on environmental policy. White served as chair of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality under then-Governor Rick Perry, who's now Trump's Secretary of Energy. White has argued that carbon dioxide is harmless and should not be regulated, has described solar and wind power as unreliable and parasitic, and has called climate change a dogma that has little to do with science. In a 2014 blog post titled Energy and Freedom, White wrote, "Coal dissolved the economic justification for slavery." In Louisiana, an oil rig exploded on Lake Pontchartrain, north of New Orleans Sunday, injuring 7 workers, 5 of them critically, leaving 1 person missing. Authorities say the rig burst into flames when cleaning chemicals ignited on the surface of the platform. It's not yet known whether the explosion caused any oil to spill. In Puerto Rico, the official death toll from the Hurricane Maria rose to 48 Saturday, but authorities warned the true toll could be far higher since power outages across the island have forced medical officials to rely on handwritten records rather than electronic data. This comes as residents desperate for drinking water have begun pumping Dorado groundwater contamination site, a hazardous waste Superfund site. The EPA warns the water contains chemicals that cause liver damage and an increased risk of cancer. About a third of Puerto Rico still lacks clean drinking water, and at least, close to 90% of the island's 3.4 million residents still lack electricity from the grid. Governor Ricardo Rosselló says he's pushing a plan to restore power to 95% of the grid by the end of December. Attorneys general from 19 U.S. states are suing the federal government after President Trump said he would cut off billions of dollars in federal subsidies to insurance companies that help cover low-income people's health care plans. Experts say ending the subsidies will dramatically increase insurance premiums, costs, and could unravel the health care market. This is New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman.
His effort to gut these subsidies with no warning or even a plan to contain the fallout is breathtakingly reckless. He has failed twice in efforts to legislatively repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. This is an effort simply to blow up the system. We will not allow President Trump to use New York families as political pawns in his dangerous partisan campaign to sabotage our health care system.
Iraq's army has begun an offensive aimed at seizing the northern city of Kirkuk from Kurdish Peshmerga fighters after voters in Iraq's Kurdish regions voted overwhelmingly for independence. A Kurdish commander said Monday his forces had retreated to positions outside the city of 1 million people as Iraqi forces moved in and also seized an oil company south of Kirkuk, adding that there were lots of casualties due to fighting. In Yemen, the World Health Organization's warning a cholera epidemic brought on by the U.S.-backed Saudi-led war and naval blockade has become the largest and fastest spreading outbreak of the disease in modern world history. The World Health Organization says there are expected to be 1 million cases of cholera in Yemen by the end of the year, with at least 600,000 children likely to be affected. After headlines, we'll speak with Congressmember Ro Khanna, a Democrat from California who recently co-authored a New York Times op-ed headline, "Stop the Unconstitutional War in Yemen." In Guatemala, a court opened a new trial Friday for former U.S.-backed dictator Efraín Ríos Montt on charges of genocide for a massacre in 1982 that killed 273 indigenous people, nearly half of them children. Ríos Montt was found guilty of genocide in 2013, but a court annulled his 80-year sentence less than 2 weeks later. In Hollywood, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences voted Saturday to expel Harvey Weinstein following investigations by The New Yorker and The New York Times, which revealed a slew of rape and sexual assault allegations against the movie mogul. In a statement, the Academy said, quote, "The era of willful ignorance and shameful complicity in sexually predatory behavior and workplace harassment in our industry is over." The statement came as 4 more women stepped forward to accuse Weinstein of rape. They're British soap star Lisette Anthony, Italian fashion model Samantha Panagrossa, British actor Alice Evans, and Miramax employee using the pseudonym Sarah Smith. Meanwhile, musician Courtney Love said over the weekend she was punished after she publicly warned women about Harvey Weinstein in 2005. This is Courtney Love being questioned that year at a red carpet event by the comedian Natasha Leggero.
Do you have any advice for a young girl moving to Hollywood?
I'll get live with it. Like Harvey Weinstein invites you to a private party in the Four Seasons stuff.
On Twitter, Courtney Love said that comment got her blacklisted by the powerful Hollywood talent agency, Creative Artists Agency, writing, quote, "Although I wasn't one of his victims, I was eternally banned by CAA for speaking out against Harvey Weinstein rape." Meanwhile, Amazon Studios says it has placed Chief Roy Price on an indefinite leave of absence following allegations of sexual harassment. Issa Hackett, a producer with the Amazon TV series Man in the High Castle, said Price sexually harassed her at the Comic-Con convention in 2015. A lawyer for a former contestant on Trump's reality TV show The Apprentice has subpoenaed Donald Trump's presidential campaign for all documents relating to her and any other women who've accused Trump of unwanted sexual contact. Summer Zervos accused Trump of repeatedly sexually assaulting her during a meeting in 2007, saying Trump kissed her on the lips, pressed his body against hers, groped her breasts, all without her consent. She was among a series of women who accused Trump of sexual assault during the 2016 campaign. Trump, in return, called Zervos and the other women liars. And former San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick is suing the owners of NFL teams, charging they unlawfully colluded to keep him out of the league for taking a knee during the national anthem to protest police brutality and racial injustice. The lawsuit charges the owners secretly conspired to deprive Kaepernick of a job in violation of the NFL Players Union agreement. Kaepernick has remained unsigned since the 2016 season, even though he led the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl in 2013 and is considered one of the league's best quarterbacks. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.